now. Okay, ma'am, we are live now. Thank you.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Apex Town Council's Personnel Committee meeting. So without further ado, first I want to also thank everyone who is joining via live stream, and thank you to staff for being here. I'll go ahead and remind people that I'm the chair of personnel, and our mayor, Jacques Gilbert, is our member of the Personnel Committee. And so thank you all again for being here, and I'm going to now turn this over to our HR Director, Mary Beth Manville. Thank you, Mary Beth.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Mayor. Welcome to both of you. We're finally together. It's been tough getting us all together, but we're here with good stuff to talk about today. So we're going to do our annual review of the budget needs in regards to pay and classification for employees, as well as our benefits this year. And I've got a partner in crime with me today to help kick it off. This is Ms. Sabrina Lewis, our HR manager, who's been with us since October. So she's into her 6th month. So she's good and brought up to speed. She's hit the ground running. But Sabrina has been an awesome and huge help in a very busy time to help lead the way with our pay and classification study. We've also been in all the discussions about merits and what we're wanting to do for the next year in regards to pay and compensation. So I asked her to join me today, and this would likely be a regular thing, if it's okay with the committee, for her to come in, not only so that you can hear a little bit from her, but then also it's good for her to hear from you, directly from you, on things that you're wanting to see for employees. And so Sabrina comes to us with a wealth of experience. Not only has she worked in other local government agencies, but also in the private sector. And most recently, she's come from RDU, just right down the road. So she has been awesome to have so far, and I know that will continue. And I'm just very grateful for her and grateful for her to be here with us. So what we thought we would do today is I can share my screen and just pull up the background information, and then we'll just go through item by item, if that works for you, Mayor Pro Tem. That sounds good? Very good. All right. Well, Sabrina, I will share this. Give me just a second. Sure. I'm trying to make sure I bring the right one up so that you guys can, if I need to drop anything else over here for you, I can pull that up, and give that just a second. All right, so I'll just kick off. Speak up if you can't see my screen, otherwise I'll assume you can. And so we'll just get it kicked off with our staff recommendation. And basically, Sabrina and I are here to recommend the following pay, classification, and benefit recommendations for the FY22 budget year. And so I'll also say that everything that you hear today has been put into the initial budget. So apart from hearing anything or other recommendations or requests from the committee, this is what we would be including in the budget to present for council later on in the fiscal year.
Mary Beth?
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to let you know, so Mayor Gilbert's having some technical issues, so it looks like he's unable to hear. So I wanted to see if we should ask Mr. Lanzer if we should take a pause for a moment.
Sure.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. I mean, I'm texting him right now, seeing if I could be of any assistance. I'm not sure exactly what the issue is. I think it's just localized to his computer right now.
Okay.
I don't know if it's something that we can pause the live stream. Is that difficult to do, John, and then come back, or should we just keep going and we'll just take a quick recess? Is that what we would call it, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah, the live stream would have to be ended and then re-kicked off, but that's not a hard thing to do.
Well, let's see.
I would ask staff what's the best thing to do in the situation, since we don't know how long it'll take.
Maybe we can just leave the live stream up, and what I'll do is pull up on my screen. I'll just type up a little something that says technical difficulties, be right back. That way, since this is being live streamed, although I don't know that if we have a recording of it later, we at least have the intro and the start to your meeting. How's that sound?
That sounds great. Thank you.
We can just pause or mute until we get back together.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay. Ms. Manville looks like he's back up, actually.
All right. You good, Mayor?
Okay, yeah, can y'all hear me now?
Sure can.
Yes.
Okay, I lost sound on my device for some reason, but I can hear you now. I apologize.
No
Oh,
worries.
no. Yeah, I'm gonna apologize for technology. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Yes.
Very good. All right. So we were just picking up saying, Mayor, that we're going to kick it off with our recommendation that addresses everything in your background information. And so that's all of our pay, classification, and benefit recommendations for the next budget year. And that all of these things are included in the initial budget that's been drafted. So apart from any suggestions or other direction that we get from the committee today, these will be what's included in the budget that goes to council in May or maybe April. Later on this fiscal year. How about that? So with that, I'll turn this over to Sabrina, our HR manager, and she's going to go over our merit and salary range and position classifications. And we'll start with the merit pay recommendations.
Thank you.
Mary Beth. Thank you, Mary Beth. Thank you. And we are recommending a merit budget of 4% of salaries this time. And that is going to be applied, that 4% would be applied to either the mid-range of the salary range, the midpoint of the salary range, or the actual employee salary, whichever is higher. And that is in line with area municipalities. Most of them, as you can see, are recommending between 3 and 4%. The only exceptions there are Wake Forest, which plans to fund at 4.5%. And recently, Holly Springs has made an increase to 4.25%. And of course, we are definitely willing to compete with them if budget allows. But for right now, we are recommending 4%. And that's going to be awarded in October in response to annual performance reviews that would be conducted between July and August. All right, so that is our merit budget recommendation. Now we can talk about our the salary range adjustment recommendations. We are recommending a 2% salary range adjustment, and that would increase our living wage to $15.30, and that would be effective July 1st, 2021. This adjustment is being recommended to recognize inflation and to remain competitive with other employers. And that's especially important for hard to fill positions such as fire, police, utility and street maintenance personnel. We want to remain competitive with them. And actually, it does give us a little bit of room if we need to increase further down the road. The universal calculation for this area is actually recommending $15.88 for 2021. But our recommendation is what it is because we actually don't have anyone in our lowest grade right now. So our actual lowest wage would be $16.07. So that does give us the ability to remain competitive as well as leave us room to make additional increases going forward. And the only employees that would be affected by this or impacted would be those that would fall below the minimum or the 5% below the minimum, 5% above the minimum of the new pay range. So once the 2% pay ranges were adjusted, anyone who fell below the minimum or who had been past probation and was under 5% above the minimum would then be increased accordingly. And so we'll continue to monitor CPI and merit pay funding levels for other municipalities and make other recommendations as we need to going forward.
So before we move into the position classification, are there any questions on the merit pay or the salary range adjustments from the Personnel Committee?
Thank you, Ms. Manville, and welcome, Ms. Lewis. Thank you so much. Mayor Gilbert, do you have any questions on either of those items before we move on?
No
merit
questions.
pay or salary range?
No questions, just comments. I just want to thank you for the work that you put into this, and of course, compensating staff accordingly. And I just want to make sure I understand it correctly. So there's a possibility that it could move up to 4.5 or to 4.25 to be competitive with the other municipalities, depending on the budget, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Just, yeah, I would love to see that if that can happen to make those adjustments.
Okay, so Mayor Gilbert, what your suggestion suggesting is you're good with the 4% at the mid-range for that, but if the budget will handle a higher level, and which higher level are you suggesting?
Yeah, good question. Thank you for that. Whatever staff feels is appropriate with the budget, but I'm not opposed to the high end. So
Okay.
or the other. So either way is fine. But if we can move it a little bit more north, I would like to see that if we can allow it.
Okay. So then that's going to be a question that you would bring that back to us at some point, or because you would take that on to the folks working on the budget. I mean, which are some on this call today, but
That's right.
Okay.
And we have, so the initial budget has been built with the 4%, and we are also still monitoring CPI as well. So for now, we can certainly talk with the budget team, but I know just based off some benefit decisions that we made, we're likely going to stay recommending 4% for this year at least. Sabrina and I talked about possibly monitoring it, especially next year, if we continue to see others going above 4%. And in addition to that, obviously just wanting to stay competitive, because you guys know we always want to be the best. But we're doing some other cool things we're going to tell you about here in just a second. So we feel like bringing, after this past year's increases, and then with the 4% this year, that allows us to remain competitive with some additional benefit enhancements that we're going to be proposing to you, and still kind of keep moving forward and keep our eye on it. So if you don't see it this year, if you don't hear back from us this year, maybe next year we can see if we can't bump that up a little bit. Is that okay, Mayor?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you for that. Yeah, I am totally okay with that. So thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ready to move on?
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Sabrina. And then I'll move you on to your position classification. Sorry.
Alrighty, thank you. So just quickly an overview, we reviewed over 110 positions that were studied this time, and about 42 title and or grade change recommendations were made for this time as well. And we've provided you with a list of those recommendations prior to this meeting. There may be a few small tweaks or adjustments between now and the final list, but that list will be submitted with the budget for approval.
Mayor Pro Tem and Mayor, did you have a chance to review those? I have them here, although it's so many, sometimes I know it can be difficult to review them.
Yeah, Mayor Gilbert, did you have a chance, and do you have any questions about any of those or the highlighted ones? Or
I did review, but I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we're good.
All right, thank you. This committee is awesome. They just move right along. And you're always welcome to ask questions, but we always stay on time, don't we? All right. So thank you, Sabrina. That was awesome. And I appreciate the feedback from the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem. And again, thanking Sabrina for her work on getting all that together for us. And so now we'll move into the benefit portion of the recommendations for next year. And I'll hit every one of them, but I'll kind of give you the highlights. So we're proposing for the next benefit year for no increases to employee rates for the health or vision plan, and actually a decrease in the dental rates. So I can speak to each one, but again, kind of hitting it at a high level, we've just continued to do really well with our health plan, and especially with the savings that we had from Cigna last year. We have had a decent year with medical claims. Our pharmacy is what is driving the need to have a small increase. But in talking with the budget staff, because we did have such a great savings last year from moving it to Cigna, the town will continue to absorb that increase for now and allow the employee rates to remain the same for this next fiscal year. So there was, again, it was about a 3% increase to the premiums. But again, the town will cover that increase for this year and moving forward. And that would be roughly $345,000 to the budget. And with that, with the health insurance, plan design, benefits, copays, deductibles, things like that, they'll all stay the same. So there'll be no changes to the rates or the benefits for the health insurance this year, health and pharmacy. And then for the dental insurance, same thing, but again, great year with the dental insurance. We've also had seen a great decrease in spending, not just with the employees, because they're still going out and getting their services done, which is nice, but also with our move to Delta Dental, and again, them just having the stronger discounts with their network. And so for this year, the rates actually are being proposed to decrease, and so both the town and the employees will benefit from that, because if you remember, the town covers the employee portion at 100%, and then for the dental insurance, employees pay 100% for their dependents. And granted, those dependent rates aren't nearly as significant as the medical rates, but of course, anytime we can get those lower for our employees, that's what we want to do. So another great year with the dental insurance, and again, that I think the move last year has helped us out with that as well. And then the vision and basic life insurance, those are also the town provided benefits. And so those will also stay the same. The rates are going to be the same as they were last year. So the employees won't see an increase to that, and neither will the town. The only increase, and I guess I should say that also in regards to, well, dental insurance going down, it won't be for that, but for both vision and then the cost for medical, the only increase that you'll see on the town's side of things are just that our numbers are going up because we have more employees. So it's never going to be apples to apples looking one year to the next, because we have just that many more employees enrolled on the plans. So obviously we'll get the employee portions of those premiums through the employees that actually covered, but if they're employee only, or if they're covering dependents, then the town would need to budget for theirs. So that is one reason, that's kind of your trend, if you will. That's one of the reasons that the budgets will sometimes increase, even though we've had a good year claims-wise. And then lastly, in regards to insurance benefits, we do have the voluntary benefits through Unum. And so again, we added a few more, I should say, a couple of years ago with the accident and critical illness plans and things like that. But none of those plans will be increasing rates. These are the plans that the employees pay 100% on, and they're voluntary, so they can choose to enroll in them if they want to, or pass if they'd like. But for those who are enrolled or who are considered enrolling this next year, the rates will be the same next year as they were this year. So no changes there.
So I have some things I wanted to share related to that. So should I go ahead, Mayor Gilbert, or do you have something that you or anything you wanted to talk about?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, you can proceed. I don't have anything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I think it does show that we made the right decision last year to move into Cigna as we did, and I was confident about that based on what I've seen with Cigna also. And I think that continuing to absorb the increase is the right thing to do, since in this country, healthcare is tied to work. So then, until that, changes, then that's what we have to do. And it's important to do that. I just say that because in a moment with the pandemic, it kind of revealed what a lot of people like me who work on health policy is that when something happens to your work, then you're left unprotected in a pandemic. That's a side. But I say related to vision and dental is I think often about how the head is attached to the body, but people think often about vision care, dental care, and behavioral mental health as a separate thing, and that's how we treat it. And then that's where we have stigma around mental health and things like that. So I appreciate the way Cigna has a way to look at that, because people need to get preventive care and take care of situations that arise, particularly in times like this. But related to dental, I just do wonder if there are people who are maybe not paid at or lower on their rate of pay is lower. I'm trying to say it the right way. Whether the dental insurance, especially for children, whether it's cost prohibitive for them. And that's my question.
That's a good question that I don't know the answer to as to why some may or may not be enrolled. I'll show you briefly. Let's see if I can pull this one up for you real quick. These are the dental rates for this upcoming year, and these are monthly rates. So as you mentioned, the child is $31.64 per month, so that's about $15 a paycheck. And then the spouse is 35, 55, because the spouse, usually there's more work that needs to be done, so that rate's a little bit higher. We can certainly keep an eye on that. And then we can also, we haven't done, since I've started here, a benefits survey specifically about certain benefits that we have that they like, or something else they'd like to see, or even just kind of some of the reasons, as you mentioned, as what's prohibiting employees from being able to enroll in our benefits. So that might be, or in fact, I won't say that might, we can certainly do that this next year. And maybe next year when we're coming back and looking at these, we could propose, something of either looking at, are the rates where they need to be, possibly considering a town subsidy on the dental rates, and then, some other options if needed. But we can certainly ask our employees, because they're the ones for sure who would need to tell us, what is prohibiting them from being able to enroll. I wish I had the enrollments, and I don't think I do on this slide.
Yeah, I mean, and so I just, originally why I wanted to increase the portion that we pay for children is it's an obvious thing why we would do that for children. And children are relatively inexpensive to cover because most children are healthy. So and actually having children on health plans, on group plans, actually lowers the premium for everyone, because they tend to help make that more affordable. So actually is a better thing to include children for a few reasons. But sometimes dental care, if you have a provider who doesn't charge as much, then sometimes the insurance is more than that. So people just just put it in the bank and just pay for the service. So I just wanted to just raise that as a thought around, dental care is healthcare, and just think about that.
Great. Very good points.
Okay. All right. Mayor Gilbert, you're still good? Okay. All right. I'm ready to move then.
All right. The last two items are additional benefits that we would ask the Personnel Committee to consider allowing us to implement for this next year. And you've heard about a few of these. So I'll speak to the two that we're recommending, and then I'll speak a little bit to the others that we're not recommending this year, but that we don't want to lose sight of. So in talking with the benefits team, not the benefits team, the budget team, we did decide that we wanted to move forward with implementing a volunteer and community involvement leave for employees. And so this would provide all full-time benefited employees with at least 1 year of service with up to 8 hours that they can use to participate in volunteering in schools or within the community. And there's no set guidelines on where specifically they have to volunteer. But the idea is, again, that they would volunteer in schools either with their own children or others, or in the community, whether it's the community in Apex, which we can partner with the wellness team to help provide more opportunities, because community involvement actually does also contribute to improved well-being. But then we can also offer more opportunities both within Apex, and then encourage them to look for opportunities within their own community if they're not in Apex. But this is something that we've started to see with other municipalities, and specifically, I think Wake County started it a few years ago. Wake Forest now has it. And again, some of the other larger communities outside of this area, also Mecklenburg County, things like that, they've started to adopt these types of leave policies, and we think it would be good for the town as well. And this is also one of the leave plans that our Employee Relations Council requested. So we would like to propose that we implement this starting with July 1st and providing everyone up to 8 hours to use for volunteer or community involvement.
Okay. Mayor Gilbert, do you have any thoughts about that?
No, just comment. Thank you for updating this and getting this move forward in this manner. I think it's good with the community engagement, and to really have this as an incentive for our employees. Really good. Just a question: how do you track that and determine if it meets the criteria? How does that work?
So we would likely do something similar to what we do with the bereavement leave, and that is just to allow the supervisors to be the ones to approve if someone needs that. And so what we've done in the past, kind of with the bereavement leave as well, but what we could do here is anything that they're involved in, they could just simply provide some kind of documentation that is what they've used it for. So it would not require any formal request through human resources. It would simply just be through their supervisor saying, hey, this is the date and time that I need to be there. And they can provide some kind of verification that they were there. One thing I had not thought of, but that we could do is even having them sign off. I know a lot of the community places, even if you go, they will go ahead and provide you something, Western Wake Crisis Ministries, for instance, if you go in or to the soup kitchen, they'll actually provide you something that you can show that you've been there and participated. But we could ask to do that as well for anyone that volunteers in the school systems or wherever else they might choose to volunteer. But we would leave that at the department level just to make it easier for the employees to be able to use it. Normally, if it comes through HR and it has to go through an official process, that can take a little bit more time. And sometimes these volunteer opportunities, especially if you're volunteering in the schools, may come up where you kind of need to make decisions quickly. But as far as tracking it, we would enter it into our HR system, and then we would have a pay code so employees could use it. And once they ran out of it, it would know not to allow the pay code any longer. And then we would just reset it every year.
Okay, great. And then one additional thing, as we move forward in this way, it would be great for the community to see what our town staff are doing, and if we can capture that from the communications team in some way, that would be amazing. All right, thank you.
So yeah, Mayor Gilbert, I agree with all of that. I was going to mention that too. It's a great opportunity to elevate, where staff is, so not just in their roles. I do appreciate you expanding it out beyond schools, because this is an opportunity to all folks don't have relationships with schools, and so I think that's just helpful to just make it more broad for what people's passion is, or what's easier. And sometimes schools may have more people doing them, and then other places may not have as many. So it encourages people to do that. But I think tracking it in a way that's also visual to just show, how many hours people have spent that work for the town of Apex doing other things in their community is also just a nice thing to see at the end of the year to show the impact. And I think as far as nonprofits and places who, we, at my job, you have those forums because it also shows your transparency in your budgets for auditors about all this work going on, but there's a volunteer who came for this many hours who did this whole thing over here for us that we wouldn't have had done so that also helps show the capacity and the impact, which is greater than what the person would even know without that being tracked.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Another cool thing I've seen, and when we roll this out, we can, share some different kind of ideas for employees, but we've even, during my time at Wake County, we would actually see departments, or at least groups from departments, go out and do things together. So not only were they helping individually give back to the community, but then it was also a bit of like a team building opportunity to kind of do it together. And that a lot of times will also just help improve working relationships. And just, again, you kind of got that sense of giving back, which again goes all the way back to the well-being. So
right. And I know we have a ton of examples, but I think about when I invited police, fire, and EMT to do this first responders dodgeball, and there was somebody that's on this call that was part of that group, and I was the coach. There's never been a coach for dodgeball, and so we all huddled ahead of time, and so the MT director had shirts for everyone and had a shirt for me too. So of course I don't have a seal because I'm not a first responder, but they made one like with a coach on there, and I still have this shirt. I'm not getting rid of it. And so just, and then watching the students, play dodgeball, it was something. Then of course the school started cheating and bringing like older siblings in because so it was a lot of fun, and that's something I'll never forget being a part of. So I think things like that, even that to me would have been community involvement.
That was an amazing time. That was. I remember that very well. I think the reason we lost, I gave the pep talk, and you should have given a pep talk, Mayor Pro Tem.
And we also had dinner. We had dinner. There was dinner there for adults, and I think we had dinner too ahead of time. So anyway, yeah.
And Mayor, you were a little bit scared of the school age kids, right? They were coming at you fast with those balls, so they could be intimidating.
Totally intimidated for sure.
Yes.
Very cool. That does sound awesome. All right, I've got that down though. Tracking it in a way. I love the idea of showing a visual and the impact, and that sounds like a great idea.
Yes, that's a great idea. That's Mayor Pro Tem. Perfect.
And then the other item for this next year would be tuition reimbursement. So we've had since fiscal year 2015, I believe it was, we've had our tuition reimbursement rate at $1,000 per fiscal year. And so we'd like to increase that to $1,500. And we're kind of thinking that maybe incrementally we can add to it, trying not to wait necessarily as long to add. But we want to be able to allow employees the opportunity to go on and at least get one course a year. And, you know, most courses now, if you go at least to a university, a 3-hour course is going to be around $1,250. So the $1,500 should hopefully allow for at least one course per year, and then maybe also help with some additional fees that may be, you know, part of that program, especially now in the virtual world. There's a lot of software and technology fees and things like that that can be tacked on to these classes. So we did want to increase that this year. And then also we're looking at some ways to revamp the tuition reimbursement policy in regards to just easier ways to apply so that we can kind of track who is going to need it in the upcoming year. And then as we're able to kind of firm that up, we can also then consider increasing it further down the road if possible.
Thank you, Ms. Manfield. Mayor Gilbert, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, I think we talked about this the last time and just want to make sure I understood it. So I know we can approve continuing education classes that is work related, but if it's something, I guess, outside of that, like if it's for skills-based training and they have to pay for it on their own or required to do that, can they get reimbursed? I guess is what I just want to get a better understanding about.
Sure. So the tuition and I'm going to let budget potentially chime in or at least confirm for me here in a second. But tuition reimbursement, as you mentioned, is for the degree program. So that is to help in that regard. But then what we do encourage our department heads to do is to provide a training budget for everyone. So for instance, in HR, when the time comes each year as we're developing our budget, we do ask, okay, what classes or courses are you wanting to take this upcoming year? And so as an example, 2 years ago, we had 2 of our employees that actually went for their SHRM certification and went through a class for that and then sat for the exam. So we do build that into our department budget. Once that's submitted to the budget team, you know, they then have to work to make sure that we can, especially if there's any increases, accommodate the increase to the training budget. But I do know that we do have to submit that like on a line by line item of exactly what courses are being taken and what we need for that following year. So normally that's happened at the department head level, or I'm sorry, the department level, and they're actually paid for in advance. There are some other things for certifications that are required for the job that that we do also pay for in advance prior to going. But I think everything's paid in advance, as long as it, again, is something that can benefit the town or the person in either that position or some other position within the town, but then also is something that we can't afford in the budget. Is that fair, Sean or Amanda, to say in regards to our process?
No, that's fair. Yeah, just about everything is in advance, especially when the class itself and that sort of thing, Mayor. I mean, if it's specifically skills training, that's not a tuition reimbursement. That's, you know, training that we provide, as Mary Beth said, through the departments, through those budgets. The only thing I think that might be reimbursed is, well, no, we do per diems ahead of time too. I was thinking like meals and stuff. So pretty much everything is handled ahead of time. Some people do pay for like their own hotel and get reimbursed for it, but that's their choice. I mean, instead of using the P card, like they may want to put it on their own card and for points or whatever, and then be reimbursed. But I mean, but everything's covered in terms of training, specifically for work-related skills and development.
Mayor, what we don't have in place right now, but is something that we do want to move to at some point, is something, well, and we want to have a program around this, but something that allows employees, let's say we've got some folks that are over in public works. And we've actually had this happen before. They're interested in going and becoming employees with inspections. Well, right now what we've done is we've actually allowed those employees to come in without the certifications and be put in on probation and then sent for the certifications. But what we have talked about in the past for even more positions within the town is providing almost like a mentor program, and kind of also, you know, we used to have that day in our shoes program and things like that where you could see what others did. There's been discussions within HR before about having a program that would really give employees an opportunity to see kind of what each position does, and then try to create a program that helps them prepare for that particular position, whatever it is that they may be interested in, because that's likely something that would not be budgeted at the department level, because normally that's going to be training that's either required for their position or that's going to benefit with them within the position or maybe a future position within the department. but actually paying for courses that are totally unrelated to their position for the town, that's something that we don't have right now, but we have talked through having something like that with some kind of mentorship program or something that helps kind of provide skill sets to employees so that they can be eligible for other positions within town.
Okay. And I'm glad. Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem.
No, I was saying, I was asking you have a follow-up.
Sure. No, I appreciate Manager Purvis coming on and Mary Beth for clarifying that. And I think that was my biggest concern or question. If there was a staff member that wanted to make a transfer to another department, had a desire to move to a different professional opportunity, that they would be given that opportunity in the best manner. So with that is for any type of training required, but I think the mentorship program may be a start. Mm-hmm. And certainly would like to hear more about that as we move forward.
All right.
Thanks. Yeah.
I agree with that. And the date in our shoes, it sounds really good. Because oftentimes, people may shock you about what their interests are. And they may shock themselves by learning about, another area, something that we want to encourage that. I do like some of the non-reimbursement and people just going ahead and having things taken care of because it's considered training. I think that's really, really good. I think we did talk before about some of our concerns around the tuition reimbursement and who's allowed for that. And so I think by still saying, I would like to see us be more explicit about who it is. Because when you say university, I think of one thing. If you see college, I think of another thing. And so when we say university, then that to me doesn't sound like it's a community college opportunity. Mm. And so I want to be more inclusive and, and say, college or university is what my pleasure would be. And if that can it include a 1-year certificate or whatever? I mean, different things like that. Can it include a 2-year associate's? Does it have, those are my questions to clarify.
Absolutely. And forgive me, I used the word university earlier just because that was kind of we knew it at a minimum, that's what we wanted to be able to pay for was a university class, but absolutely the policy as it is right now is for any accredited college or university course, and that includes associate's degrees, so and community colleges. And that's where most of our employees right now, honestly, are attending is Wake Tech. So that's already covered. And again, forgive me for the university language, that was just in determining the right amount for the tuition reimbursement.
Okay, thank you.
Great point. Yes, absolutely. And that's a lot where also, there are still a lot of trades within public service. And, I know that people don't tend to look at those, but that's where the greatest need is. And that's what we're seeing a lot of our employees going for, which is really exciting because that obviously helps us as well as we're recruiting not only internally, but also externally. And we've had lots of partnerships with the community colleges for those very things, especially with the classes that are the positions that are a little hard to fill, because some of those trade positions are definitely getting harder to fill as people are looking elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. I guess one last thing, it's kind of a little bit unrelated, but the great program that our public works our electric operations has with Durham Tech, and just wondered, and then the success related to that new hire, but I wanted to see if there are other departments where there are people who tend to be underrepresented in those fields where we would be reaching out in some way as well.
Sure. We can, I don't know off the top of my head others that have an existing arrangement with any community colleges. I'm trying to think. The only thing I can say is obviously the police department works with VLET, but that's for different, including diversity reasons as well, but just for a variety of reasons of really being there to help be a presence so that once those employees or candidates are eligible to be hired, they're looking at Apex. Likewise with the fire department, they do go out to the academies, and then you've heard them talk about having our own academy before to be able to do that. Inspections has talked with Wake Tech before, not so much in regards to diversity specifically, although that's been a part of it, but also just, again, the lack of interest it seems to be in inspections these days. And I think a lot of that has to do with regulations like that have made things to where you can be more personally liable for things like that. It's just become a field that people aren't kind of flocking to as they once did. So I know they've partnered with them on that regard to help kind of increase exposure to the position and also kind of what's involved, and also to help kind of get that that funnel, if you will, of applicants for the town once they're done. But we can certainly, for all those very good reasons, look and see what opportunities we have to partner more with the community colleges, not just in Wake County, but even, as you mentioned, Durham and other areas.
Thank you.
Sure. The last thing I'll just mention on these, that's all we have to present to you, but I did want to let you know we had provided some information on other benefits that our Employee Relations Council wanted to see. So I did want to speak to that, and I'll be meeting with them on Thursday, and we'll share it as well. Some of the other things were increasing the longevity amounts, and then we also had the additional sick leave benefit that was of interest to the Employee Relations Council. And we did talk about just putting those on the side for this year, since we are still a little uncertain of the impacts with COVID and things like that. And especially with the longevity, that does have a more direct impact to the budget. But we don't want to lose sight of those. As I mentioned earlier, we do want to bring those back next year and maybe see if that's something that we can do moving forward. But with the increase in the medical insurance that the town did want to absorb, we felt that did kind of benefit more employees altogether. So we wanted to be able to keep those rates the same, but still continue to enhance our benefits through the community involvement leave and the tuition reimbursement. And then the additional sick leave was another one that we talked about that Raleigh and Wake Forest have been doing. And we did want to hear back and just get confirmation from the retirement system first that that was something that they would allow to be used towards retirement. You know, the council gets the pension spiking letter, and that's something that they've been looking at to make sure that employers aren't giving additional benefits that have a dollar value for the retirement system right there at the end of an employee's tenure. Because what happens is the employee ends up getting a larger benefit when it comes to retirement, and the town doesn't pay that, the retirement system does, yet the employee has not put that money into it. And, you know, our retirement system that's really managed well is all based off you contribute while you're in service, and then obviously when you retire you get that benefit for the rest of your life. So we certainly wanted to make sure that we were a-okay on that one if we wanted to implement something like that. And I did email them a while back, followed up with a phone call, but I have not heard an answer yet. So before we move forward with that, we just want to firm up that that is going to be something our employees would be able to use, because we certainly don't want to misspeak and then get in trouble with the retirement system or end up having the employee get paid more than they should be getting and have to pay that back later. So we'll be back on that possibly next year as we learn a little bit more.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Mayor Gilbert, do you have questions about those two items?
No. Thank you so much for that update.
Sure.
All right. So I think we're at the end, right?
We are. That's it from us.
All right. So if you don't need anything else from us, and Mayor Gilbert, you don't have any more comments on any of the above?
Hey, we finally got here. We made it happen. We're done.
Okay. All right. So thank you, everyone. And so that's the end of our meeting. We're adjourned.
Thank you
all.
Thank you all.
Bye.